Have you ever wondered why some people stand and other people sit when they say Kiddush on Friday nights? Or why some people hold the cup in the palm or say L'chaim in the middle of the blessing? Give me a few minutes and you'll learn the answers to these questions and more. The word Kiddish means sanctification. It's the language we use in order to mark the beginning of Shabbat and indicate the holiness of this period of time. While Kiddush is traditionally recited over red wine, it's actually permissible to use any beverage other than water. That's white wine, grape juice, whiskey, vodka, even orange juice or milk. Technically, you can even say Kiddush over challah. If you use anything other than wine or grape juice, you just need to change the words borei pri hagafen to whatever the appropriate blessing would be, like shahakol. Now, before you can say Kiddush, you need to pour your wine into a nice glass. Many people will use a beautiful sterling goblet, but really any fancy glass, that is, not your everyday drinkware, will do, as long as it's not chipped or blemished. There are reasons for this, but central is the idea of hidur mitzvah, that we always want to perform a mitzvah in the most beautiful way possible. Next, you need to fill up your glass. You must have at least a cheekful of wine, which is about 1.5 ounces or 1 shot. But the preferred method is to fill your glass all the way up to the brim. This comes from a verse in Psalm 23 that says, Kosi rivaya, my cup runneth over. Also in Deuteronomy it's written, Umale birkat Adonai, yam v'darom yirasha. Full of Adonai's blessing, possess the sea and the south. In other words, fullness represents boundless blessings. Now, growing up, my father would always hold the Kiddush cup like any other glass, using his right hand to hold it in the middle. This is one of 3 ways our tradition has taught us to hold the Kiddush cup. Another way is to hold with both hands. This custom comes from a verse in Psalm 134 where it says, lift your hands in holiness and bless the Lord. That's hands with an S, hence 2 hands. Some people prefer to use only the right hand though, as the left hand is traditionally considered impure for scatological reasons. Finally, you may have seen people hold the Kiddush cup in the palm of their right hand with their fingers pointing upwards. This is a Kabbalistic tradition that is taught at the very beginning of the Zohar, where it quotes the phrase, like a rose amongst the thorns, from Song of Songs. Here, the Zohar compares Israel to a rose, which is surrounded by threats or thorns. And just like a rose is surrounded by 5 hardy and protective leaves, Israel is protected by what's called the 5 gates of salvation. This is a complex Kabbalistic idea, but in short, the 5 fingers of the right hand represent the 5 leaves around the rose of the Kiddush cup. Now, when you hold the Kiddush cup up, you actually need to lift it up into the air just a little bit. This is based on Psalm 116, where it says, Kos yeshuot esa uv'shem Adonai ekra. I shall lift up the cup of salvation and call out God's name. Now, do you stand or sit when you bless? That's the question. Some people have the custom of standing, and there are rabbis who support that practice. Others will stay seated the whole time, and there are rabbis who support that practice. There are even those who will stand for the first paragraph of the blessing and then sit for the rest of it. Whatever you choose to do is entirely your decision, and primarily is going to be based on whatever your family's traditions have been. Finally, we're ready to recite the blessing. We begin by quoting the book of Genesis, specifically the story of creation on the 7th day, or rather, the very end of the 6th day. Vayihi erev, vayihi boker, yom hashishi. There was night and morning, the 6th day. And then we recite or sing Vayechulu. Next comes an interesting custom where the person leading Kiddush asks permission of everyone else to continue with the blessing. They do this by asking Savri or Savri miranan v'rabotai, which means, do you agree? Now, this is where things get a bit confusing. Most people respond by saying L'chaim, meaning to life. The reason our sages give for this response is a bit convoluted. That might be because the proper response should actually be l'chaye, not l'chaim. Just as savri is Aramaic, asking permission to proceed, l'chaye is also Aramaic, meaning okay. But because l'chaye sounds so much like the traditional toast l'chaim, the two words might have gotten confused here. In short, either response is fine, and most commentators support the practice of saying l'chaim, but l'chaye might actually be the more accurate and original wording. Once permission is granted, we continue with the blessing Borei Pri Hagafen, acknowledging God as the creator of the fruit of the vine. But we don't yet drink. This is one example of what's called a bracha arichta, or a long blessing, meaning more than one blessing is recited, but together as a single grouping. This is similar to the Sheva Brachot at a wedding, when we first bless over wine, but only drink it after all 7 blessings are said. Or at Passover Seder, when we bless over the wine, then sanctify the holiday, and only drink after saying Shehachianu. All right, back to the Kiddush. If you're not the one leading, you might get confused as to when to join in with the singing. Technically, it's not necessary to do so. All you have to do is say Amen at the end. But if you do want to join in, the appropriate place would be at Kivanu v'charta v'otanu kidashta. This is when we speak in the collective. God chose us and distinguished us by giving us the Torah and Shabbat. And that's it. Once the leader says the final blessing, Mikadesh HaShabbat, everyone else says Amen and can finally enjoy the sweet taste of Shabbat.